Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today the club Premier League coverage is back. Manchester United against Newcastle, tactical preview time. Of course, these two faced each other recently in the Carabao Cup final, with Manchester United that is, winning the game 2-0 to lift the trophy. However, I think this will be a really different game to what we saw at Wembley. Now, the main reason for that is because in that game at Wembley in the Cup final, Manchester United very much sacrificed possession. They let Newcastle have the ball for large periods and trusted in their own ability to defend whilst also playing in transition and in moments, and it worked for them. However, one of the reasons it really worked was because on the day, Casemiro was absolutely phenomenal. Big problem, unavailable for this game because of suspension again. So instantly, I think that kind of changes the dynamic of how the game will be played. I think Ten Hag's side, and therefore, without Casemiro's defensive qualities, they need to be on the ball a bit more. So what I want to do in today's video is put a bit more of an emphasis on how Manchester United can take control of the ball and control possession, create chances, play through the press, etc, etc. We didn't really see it in the Carabao Cup final, but I think we will need to see it in this game. In terms of lineup, McTominay is probably the most straightforward swap for Casemiro. I'm not entirely sure. I think losing Casemiro's size, though, up against a team like Newcastle, we could see Scott McTominay come in, and maybe it'd look something like this. A McTominay, Sabitzer, Fernandes, midfield three. Of course, we could see Fred in there as well, instead of Sabitzer, or it could be Sabitzer deeper instead of McTominay. There's a few different alternatives. I think I would go with this, though, for Sabitzer's passing quality on the ball. Of course, you've got to have Bruno Fernandes, and then McTominay's size, I think, could be quite handy. So, let's take a look at some of the patterns which might occur during the game. And we're going to start with United trying to play the ball out from the back through David De Gea. Now, I realise I said it again. If I say United during this video, I'm probably referring to the team in red. Apologies, it's just a bad habit, but it's kind of how it is. So, the way that Newcastle will look to press United when they play out from the back is with the wingers coming narrow and Isak dropping more into the midfield. So we'll see Isak picking up Scott McTominay here, Gordon and St Max will come narrow. Now this is the shape that they've been using to press recently, and the idea behind this is that you stop the ball being played through the midfield through someone like Scott McTominay, but you also stop the centre-backs getting on the ball. Now of course the obvious solution to this appears to be for David De Gea to play the ball out to the fullbacks. However, there's two issues here. One, De Gea isn't great at doing it, his weight of pass isn't great in these areas, but also, if the ball isn't spot on, what Newcastle will then do is have a midfielder pounce and come out, and then they still have cover in the midfield because of their striker dropping deeper, and it can happen on both sides. So we could go out the other way as well. Let's say De Gea plays the ball out towards Wan-Bissaka, Joelinton, hidden behind here, will come out and engage, Gimresh would cover Fernandes, Longstaff would tuck in on the other side, and again we've still got Isak on McTominay. So this is the problem that Manchester United are going to face. How can they play through this? Well, of course one way to play through it is to not even attempt to, essentially, and basically just play the ball long up to Weghorst. This was something that we saw being a big theme in the game in the cup final. One of the goals actually came from this, Weghorst getting knocked down, Rashford then has a moment of magic and scores a really good goal. So I definitely wouldn't be surprised if we see this during spells of the game. I don't think it will be, the team's go-to. I don't think it'll be Ten Hag's main game plan. However, we certainly could see situations where the ball is going long up towards Weghorst, and United are kind of playing for second balls. There, of course, it's just who's on it on the day, who can win the second ball, who anticipates, who gets in the right positions. Again, that could be where McTominay is useful for his size, but perhaps you want the speed and nimbleness of Fred in there. I'm not too sure. So, yeah, expect to see long balls in the game. However, I don't think it will be the main pattern, because ultimately, Manchester United need to find a way to try and play away through the press. The question is, how do you do it? Well, I do wonder if one solution could actually be to move the fullbacks really, really deep. Now, this is something which we just do not see teams do. Let's say, for example, why not push Varane and Lisandro Martinez to the edge of the box like this and move both fullbacks really deep? Like I said, teams do not do this, but I just wonder if it could work. It's not something that I don't think I've ever recommended before. It's a different shape. The reason that I'm saying it is because let's say the ball was to go to Varane and then wide here. We were saying before that this was the trigger for the Newcastle midfielder to step out. Well, yeah, go on Joelinton, step all that way out. Because look at the room that he's leaving him behind. For example, you could then go inside to David De Gea and then you've got this ball here. So I do just wonder if moving the fullbacks super deep in the build-up phase could be a bit of a way to get around the Newcastle press. I mean, what they could do to try and match it is perhaps move St Max really wide onto the fullback, Gordon on the other side, but, it leaves them short in the middle. So this is something that I would consider if I was Ten Hag. This is maybe what I would go for, but I don't actually think it's that likely that we will see it. But again, maybe keep an eye out for it. It could be a solution. I think probably the more likely approach from United is to play to the fullbacks. Whether it's the centre-back first and then the fullback, or either way, I think this is the way that United will go. And basically, try and play on the fact that at times Joel Linton and Longstaff will be slow to get out. Because it isn't easy to go from marking Bruno Fernandes in this area to then getting out towards Wan-Bissaka. The important thing here, though, is not only the speed at which the Newcastle midfielder gets across, but the fact that it leaves Newcastle man-for-man in the middle. And I'm a big fan of the man-to-man press. I think it's how you should press in midfield. However, the problem it does create is that if the opposition, in this case Manchester United, are intelligent with their movement, let's say Guimaraes is man-marking Bruno Fernandes here, you can pull them about a bit, which then opens up space for someone like Weghorst to come into. So I think there are ways that United can get through this press. I don't think it'll be easy, but I think Weghorst being the spare man could be useful, and I think the fullbacks are going to have really good games. I think probably down the left-hand side is the better solution. Of course, you've got Lisandro Martinez's quality on the ball. He alone is capable of entirely breaking a press just with his dribbling ability. He could easily go past Gordon, so that's one thing. But also, him and Luke Shaw, their ability on the ball, again, can submit to drag someone like Longstaff and open up this room for Weghorst. I certainly think it's something which we will see. Again, it won't be the main theme of the game. However, expect to see it at some points. And I think basically everything we've spoken about so far will happen in the game. None of it will happen constantly, but it will all be there during the game. And it could very well be how United get a goal. If they're able to quickly get through the press and turn a deep position into a transition and, get Rashford in behind, Antony on the other side, it could create good moments. So before we continue with the video, I want to talk to you guys about where I got this shirt from, and you probably guessed it, jerseyfifa.com. They have kindly sponsored today's video and also sent me a load of free shirts for me to check out myself, and I can now really vouch for the quality of these products. They have loads of shirts to offer on the website, so if you are interested, head to the link in the description down below and check out Jersey FIFA for yourself. If the boys in red are able to kind of play through the press, then I think Newcastle will quickly drop off into their shape, and whilst they will have spells of high pressure, they are also happy to contain you in a mid-block in a 4-5-1 shape. And, difference between a mid-block and a low block, the mid-block is that little bit higher up the pitch, which does leave a bit of space in behind, but they're still squeezing nice and high, but they're not going super high press. So this is what we could see Newcastle doing. And like I said, they would do so in a 4-5-1. So this gives Manchester United a couple of options, probably the 3-2 or the 2-3 shape. Personally, I would look to use the 2-3, because there's not really a need for 3 central players up against just Isak, so I think the 2 centre-backs would be enough. However, I think I would be moving the fullbacks quite narrow, because Newcastle will be compact in their own shape. So I would almost match that compactness at times, which might sound a little bit daft, but I would be looking to progress the ball out wide. I think, to be fair, it's kind of what Newcastle want you to do, but if I was United, I would try and, test that theory. Test whether it really works. Test if they really want to defend in these areas. For example, an easy way that they could progress the ball is if Luke Shaw moves inside, dragging Gordon, Lisandro Martinez can step and play the ball into Marcus Rashford. From here, I'd like to see both wingers being really front-footed and getting at their fullback, and I actually think that Antony on the right-hand side in particular could play a really big role in this game. He gets a lot of criticism for what he does in the final third, but I think in the middle third, he's one of United's best ball progressors. So his ability to kind of slowly move the team up the pitch down this side of the pitch with his dribbling could be really useful for getting the team moving forward, kind of past that mid-block a little bit, and I think it could work. The other thing which could work is the fact that, if Weghorst is going to drop in a little bit deeper, then at times Manchester United can create the overload in midfield, with Fernandes, Sabitzer, Weghorst and McTominay being 4 up against just a Newcastle 3. And what this can do in some games is ask a bit of a question of Guimaraes, because what we often see is that the Newcastle striker isn't always particularly engaging in the mid-block, which means that if it's a 4 versus 3, Guimaraes has a question to answer. Does he go forward on McTominay or sit back on Weghorst? And, again, this isn't a massive theme of the game, which will be happening constantly, but you do see moments, like in the game against Manchester City recently, you do see moments where Guimaraes isn't sure whether he should be high on McTominay or dropping on the striker behind him. So again, this does create opportunities to maybe get the ball into midfield and then work from there, because you can then get players in behind the Newcastle midfield. Particularly with the fullbacks being quite narrow, it gives Sabitzer and Fernandes the chance to move forward into high positions, and they could just find themselves getting behind Longstaff and Joel Linton, and if they're able to do that, then of course you can have some real success. Because quickly you can get the ball into these areas and cause problems. Of course, the alternative is that at times Guimaraes will be super high on McTominay. Lisandro Martinez, again, his quality, trying to get the ball to Weghorst could be something which they use. But generally, I think the progression will come out wide. Manchester United could also sort of force this space out wide to appear, force Newcastle into these positions. Let's say Lisandro Martinez has the ball here, Luke Shaw can kind of step wider and deeper at times, dragging Gordon, and then it opens up this bit of space for Sabitzer to drop into. Now, yes, you could argue, well, Longstaff will cover him, but that isn't the case because he will prioritise covering inside and protecting the middle of the pitch. So again, it gives Manchester United the opportunity to kind of, said that a bit weird, the opportunity to kind of bypass the Newcastle mid-block, get past that bank of 5, get outside the midfield and get into these dangerous areas where, again, I genuinely think Manchester United could have some success. Newcastle aren't quite on it like they were earlier in the season, so I do think there is potential for Manchester United to move the ball forward. If they're going to do this, I think the fact that they're going to attack with a front 5 at times could be very, very dangerous for them. We know that Newcastle will defend in a back 4. That gives Manchester United plenty of potential to really hurt them. Again, with Sabitzer and Fernandes playing quite high behind the Newcastle midfield, especially when the fullbacks are tucked in, it could cause real problems. I think also, of course, rotations will be important. So here we've got Sabitzer kind of in this pocket here, Rashford out wide, Shaw deeper. But there would be spells where Sabitzer drops in, Rashford comes narrow and Shaw goes high. Those rotations, as always, will be very important. But I just think this ability to make the 5 versus 4 is so important. I go on about it quite a lot, but it's because it's a tactic which works so well. If you've got a front 5 with quality throughout it, up against a back 4, why not exploit it? Especially when you've got someone like Sabitzer who can play a little bit deeper and maybe hit long passes as well. I think that could be a weapon. Especially, let's say Manchester United are attacking down the left-hand side. Newcastle are dragged over towards one side, which can certainly happen. This is something we will see during spells of the game. United's ability to then go backwards to Sabitzer and switch the play to Antony could be really useful. Whether Antony is then going to be direct and attack Dan Burn, of course, we saw that in the cup final. Antony had the better of him for sure, and it looked really good. But also the potential for someone like Wan-Bissaka to then make an underlap and run, and even make the front 6 here. I just think that Manchester United should have enough different ways in this game in which they are able to progress the ball forward. I think if they are kind of, sounds like cliche, but on it, you know, if they're sharp from the start, then it could get them in a really good position. Now, that isn't guaranteed. It's always difficult after the international break. Manchester United weren't exactly playing great football before the international break. The team really needs to be on it. There needs to be a sharpness, a crispness on the ball. But if they do that, genuinely, I think there's positions they can get into. And of course, when you get into these areas, then it's about, do you have that quality? Can Wan-Bissaka pick out his man with a cutback to Bruno Fernandes? That's the sort of thing where Ten Hag can't really help it too much. He's got to put the tactics in place to get the players into position. Then it's just about whether or not they execute or deliver. And at the end of the day, at this level, that is the difference 9 times out of 10. We talk about tactics all the time, but at the end of the day, if the players don't execute, normally that is the difference maker. So we will have to wait and see if Manchester United are able to execute. However, what we have seen in this video is that I think there are a few ways that Manchester United can move the ball forward, cause problems, get into dangerous positions and hurt Newcastle. So now we will just have to wait and see. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you see any weaknesses in this Newcastle team from a defensive point of view which could be exposed? Which players do you think will be important? Marcus Rashford normally has a pretty big role to play. Let me know though what you think in the comment section down below. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed the video, and as always, I will see you in the next one.